All right, so I'm going to work off of my fresh ease installation so that I have all the same problems that you're going to have. So hopefully we might stumble together a little bit. So let's start out by launching ease. Yes, yes. All right, so you should, if you've done everything correctly, be prompted with this message. Anyone not get prompted with this message?
I have the message.
Because I've got one ease license checked out at the moment. I don't know who has it. Is it any of you? No. You got the message?
Yes.
All right. Ian, how about you?
I just got the message.
Okay. All right, so then hit yes. I would like to register it now. And then go ahead and hit download license.
Can we only download a license on this Wi-Fi?
No.
License invalid.
You didn't install eScard.
Did you not install the easeguard?
So it shouldn't take long.
So out of curiosity, how does it know?
How does it know what?
How does it know that like we have these 10 that we can access?
That's what that easeguard was. That was a specific installation that is linked to our license. Okay, so you want to get at least to this point where it says you have a license available 1.
Okay, it just said,
the easeguard setup hasn't changed for users.
yeah.
That's what mine said too.
What?
It says the easeguard setup has detected different user-specific ease4 license information. Continuation can cause ease license loss.
I've never checked.
Yeah, but you don't have a license, so it's okay.
Okay.
Just go ahead and do it.
I have an error code.
What's it say?
No valid license now.
Yeah, so hit download.
Got my license.
So, okay, so hit okay.
Okay.
And now,
So my easeguard is
you
set up.
can hit download again.
You'll find out what happens when that goes. Because
Is that right?
Now we download license.
There you go.
It's already hidden. So now we just tell you how many licenses.
You got one? You got one?
Yeah, number of licenses already used.
Okay. So now hit download. Okay. Okay, good. Okay. There, you're there. Okay, everyone's there. Yay, we did it.
Now, remember, don't keep it. So once you've got that, you can hit this exit button, and then you should be able to launch the ease program. You should see something like this. Yeah? And this time it doesn't give you an error. So open up this, go to File menu and go to Options. And let's just take a look here at a couple things. If you go here to Default Paths, this is where all of your ease things will go. And like John, you're somewhere in your installation, like you pointed it to your desktop. And so yours should say desktop, but ours, everyone else's should say users, public documents. That's a place you can store it where other user accounts can get to it. That's just where they do it.
mine say users public documents.
It does, all of them?
Yeah.
So, just like a clarifying question on how Parallels itself works. All of these files are stored in basically on the Mac aspect. It's like an app.
No, there's a file on your computer that's a disk image file. And that file represents the hard drive of this virtual computer that's running Windows.
Like I just cut my hard drive in half and gave half
No.
of it to...
No, you didn't partition your drive. You have a file on your hard drive on your Mac that pretends to be a hard drive on a Windows computer. You did not partition your hard drive. It's just a really big file that's sitting on your computer. I can show you where mine is. So let's see. So there's all of mine. I've got a Windows 7 one. Notice it's 63.5 gigs. This is Windows 10, which is 26.5 gigs. This Windows XP is 10.71. Yours is probably in your home folder. If you go to home, you'll see a folder for Parallels, and like this one, and you'll have your disk images there probably. But it's just a file on your computer, and that file represents the entire startup drive for your Windows virtual machine.
Will we be using this enough in our time at school that it might be worth investing in like a hard drive just for all of the Parallels files and all of that stuff?
Well, it doesn't matter how often you use it. It sits there no matter what. So whether you're using it or not, it's sitting there taking
I'm
up.
saying, like, are we going to be like creating new files and going, you know, from the initial like 20 gigs or how much it is all the way like just more?
Well, it'll grow as you put things in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're worried about that, you can put it on an external drive. But the only problem there is then you always have to have that external drive plugged in when you're running Parallels, which is fine if that's what you want to do. But yeah, you just have to move that file. Then you got to tell Parallels that's where it is. But what I'm talking about is not that. I'm talking about the file path inside of Windows. And this is important because this is where all of your files will go when you save them and create new files in ease. So let's make sure we know how to find this folder. So it says c/user/public/documents/ease for data. Where is that? Well, open up your file explorer here. And you're going to go to this PC, and you're going to look for local disk C. That's where it said it was, right?
Yes.
So open up local disk C, and you should see something that looks like this. Like that.
Well, that works.
So you should see something like this, yes? A set of folders like this?
Yes.
All right, you're going to go into Users. And then what was the next place? Public. And what was the next one? Public Documents. And look at there, ease for data. So you open that up, and you've got all these things. So this global speakers, that's where all the loudspeaker files are. Global materials, that's where all like the surface material files are stored. But the one that you're probably going to want to know the most is this projects. This is where all your projects will get saved that you work on in these.
I don't have that folder.
You don't have a projects folder?
I don't have any of those folders.
Then
Download stuff on the
you are looking in the wrong place then.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so this is where you're going to go if you're looking for these files. Mostly, if you ever have to open one and you lose the reference to it, you have to navigate to this directly. This is not the best way to move the files around. You shouldn't go to this folder and just copy these files because there's some more information that you need to have. But I'll show you how to do that. But I just want to make sure you know how to get to that because you have to know where that location is because there's a couple of situations where you'll need to get to it. Okay. So we'll close that for now. Let's look at a couple other things. Video adapter is not super important for our context. You can customize the title screen. Again, not super important. Disk, not super important for you. Data, just leave these all to auto. Settings, however, is important. Okay? Because if you look here, there's a very specific setting that will, either cause you trouble or not, which is units. Okay, so these defaults to metric, which is fine, and you can do it in metric, but know that most of what you're going to be doing in ease is going to be replicating drawings from the spaces that you're going to work in. And those drawings are probably going to be drawn in English measurements, like inches and feet. So you have to make a choice. Either you're going to convert all of your CAD drawings to metric, scale them to metric, or you're going to switch ease to feet and inches. You have to do one of the two. 'Cause if you try to use the values from the CAD drawings of the theaters and plug those into ease, it's going to think you're plugging in meters as opposed to feet. And that is going to vastly change the results that you get, because a meter is a lot larger value than a foot. Okay, it's actually 3.28 times larger, which will be a lot of a big difference in the data that ease plots. So I am going to choose to switch to feet, because I'd rather click that box there once than convert every single one of my CAD files over and over again that I ever get for shows henceforth and forever, because I usually work on shows here in this country, and so I'm always going to be getting them in English units. So I would suggest you switch that. If not, that's fine, but you got to convert everything. Okay, so once you have that, you can hit apply, and then hit OK. And now we're back. All right, so what we're going to learn today is just sort of how to draw the room in ease. Okay, so what you're going to need is some CAD files. So I've got the CAD files for the Friedman Theater here. You can get those yourself also from our server. You go onto Walrus, go to Show Archives, go to UNCSA Theaters, and you should see a PP Friedman. Go ahead and take that and copy that to your desktop, open it up in AutoCAD, and you'll be ready to go. Both. So get those downloaded, get them opened in AutoCAD so that you can look at them, follow along with me. So while you're doing that, let me explain to you a couple things here. So what's happening with ease is actually pretty cool if you think about it, because we've gotten to the point where we understand sound well enough and we understand how it works well enough that we can sort of predict and replicate its behavior virtually on a computer, which is pretty cool. I mean, if you do this, if you put enough data into ease, it'll actually let you hear what the room will sound like if you were to build it the way you drew it in the computer, which is super impressive. So that being said, the information you put into ease is super important, because the information that ease will tell you will only be as good as the information that you told ease, right? So ease just runs predictions based on the data that you give it. So you give ease a bunch of information about the space and the sound system that you're wanting to put in, and then ease will tell you a prediction of what it thinks that sound system will do in that space as you defined it. So if you are lazy and sloppy in the data you give ease, then the data you get out of ease will also be lazy and sloppy. So you want to be really careful about how you put this stuff in. Make sure you get it accurate, clear, with an appropriate level of detail, so that you can trust the results you get out of it. So just something to keep in mind, that ultimately ease is, the reason we're using ease is ease can do for you something that would take you longer to do for yourself, right? But we know how to do it ourselves now. We've learned how to plot last speaker coverage manually. We know how to do that. So we're just going to let ease do it for us because ease can do it faster and with more detail than we can do it in the same amount of time. So but it does, there's nothing magical about it. It's just doing all that math that you already know how to do. It's just doing it under the hood for you. So just keep that in mind as we go along. So now that everyone got the CAD file open? Okay, so let's create a new project. Go to the File menu and say New Project in ease. And there's two little bits of information you have to put here. One is what they call the hall, and the hall, that what they mean by hall is what's the theater, the space, the venue, whatever, what's that called? So I'm going to say this is Friedman Theater. You could even say UNCSA if you want, or something. Project file name. This is the idea here is that potentially you could have the theater, the hall, sort of as a separate file, and then you could have multiple projects associated with it. You know, that's fine. That's probably not what we're going to do. But the name of the project, however, this is what the file will be called that you save. Okay, so you could call this the name of the show that you're working on. You can, or whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. It just needs to be something that you'll remember and that you'll recognize when you see it again. Okay, so I'm going to call this ease class demo, but you can call it whatever you want, as long as it's something that you will remember. Notice this project path, and it should be that same path that we found earlier. You can change it if you want. You can have this project go somewhere else on your computer, but just keep in mind that you have to then remember where that is. And it's going to put the project in a different location than some of the other ease data, which could potentially cause you confusion later. My recommendation is to use the default project path for ease, so that all those files are in the same place. And then I can show you later how to move them around. So once you got that all put in, you can hit this little button that says Create. And it says, hey, the project path does not exist. Do you want to create it? Yes, I would, because basically what it's saying is, hey, you said you wanted to put this project in this folder that was named, in my case, class demo. There's no folder for that, so it's just asking you, do you want to make a folder to put this in? And you say, yeah, I do. That was kind of the whole point of why I went through that whole process. I don't know why they give you that error, because it seems silly, because it's like, yes, that is literally what I just asked you to do, is to make a folder and put those files in it. And they're like, are you sure you want to make a folder and put files in it? Yeah, I do. That's what I asked you to do. Okay, so before you can really do anything else in ease, you've got to define a room, because ease is all about predicting sound inside of rooms. So it should by default select this folder called Room Edit, and then you see this little button that says Modify Data. Double click on that, and look what happened. It launched a separate little program, and if you click on that down on the bottom, it takes you to this little window. This is something that is, I think, a little obnoxious about ease, is that every little thing you do in ease is a different app. So when you installed ease, you actually installed like 50 different programs. And it's like one for every little function that ease can do, which is in some ways nice, and I understand kind of why they did it, because ease is actually very complicated, and can be very complicated. It does a lot of things, and so rather than try to like fit all those things into one app in one window, they've created separate apps with windows for, you know, the different functions. So that's nice. Every one little window only has its little simple functions that it's doing. The downside is sometimes it's difficult to keep track of where everything is, because since all of this is running in different apps, they don't necessarily automatically talk to one another. So you could make a change in the Room Edit app that would need that contains information that would be helpful in like the surface plotting app, but that doesn't necessarily automatically happen. You know, the other surface plotting app doesn't necessarily know that you changed something in the Room Edit app. So you have to go through this process of manually telling it to update, to like, okay, take these changes, now propagate those to the other things that need this information. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so let's go. I'm going to go ahead and make this window a little bit larger. And what do you notice? What's the first thing you see here that looks at all familiar? Yeah, you see this thing that looks very similar to a thing you might have noticed in CAD before. But what you'll notice here is that we have 3. So instead of just UCS that goes, X and Y, we've got one that goes 3 different ways. So we now have a Z axis, and Z is up. Okay, so because now we're plotting in 3 dimensions here, as opposed to just 2. So Z is up. In E's, X, which is the red line, is going to be off stage left. So you want the X to point off stage left. The green line is Y, and you want the Y to point up stage. Okay, that's how E's wants this information. Okay, so Z is up, X is offstage left, and Y is upstage. And what you have to do now is we have to go to our CAD files and synchronize those UCSs so that all, because we've got 3 of them now. We've got 1 in E's, you're going to have 1 in the section file and 1 in the ground plan file. You got to get all those coordinate systems synchronized because we're going to be copying coordinates from CAD into E's. And if the UCSs aren't all lined up, then the coordinates you get are not going to be consistent. And you're going to get very inconsistent drawings out of E's. So let's go over to CAD and figure out how to do that. So if we go over to the ground plan, we've got to move our UCS. So you're going to type the word UCS. Enter. It says specify the origin. Where is the origin? Well, it should be the intersection of the plaster line and the center line, which you can see is right here, the intersection of these 2 dotted lines. You see what I'm doing? So I'm going to snap it to that intersection and click. And the next thing it asks me is specify a point on the x-axis, which is, in other words, which direction should x go? Which direction should x go? Off stage left. So yeah, I'm going to go over here and kind of, I'm going to find a spot off stage left and something I can snap to that is on that axis. And I'll click. Okay, now X is pointed off stage left. Make sure you don't snap to something that's not perfectly on that plaster line. Otherwise, your X will be ski-wumpus. Okay, now it's asking me specify a point on the Y. And we want Y to go upstage, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So now I've clicked that. Now I've got Y pointed upstage, X pointed offstage left. So let's just verify that this worked, okay? So I'm going to drop a point on, and I'm just going to type this in. So X, I'm going to say 0, and Y will be, let's just say 10 feet. There's my point. I just want to make double sure that that point is perfectly on that line for center line, that we don't have anything going ski-wampus when I typed my UCS. So if your point isn't overlapping with that center line, then you've got to redo your UCS. Huh?
Because whenever I do 0 to 10, it goes like.
Yeah, because I typed 1, 0, and then feet, the little apostrophe for feet. We'll scale it in a minute. I want to make sure that we've got everything pointed in the right direction first. Okay, and then do the same thing on the X. So I'm going to draw a point on the X. So I'll do a point, and the point will be 10 feet, comma, 0. So 10 feet over on the X, 0 on the Y.
Mine is not going quite that blue line
What are you talking about?
Oh, I went 10 inches, that's right.
Yeah, if you went 10 inches, that's fine. You just have to make sure that the point here is, I don't care where you put the point, I just need to make sure that if you said this thing should be on 0y, that it is on 0y.
Yeah,
0y is the center line.
10 foot, 7 inches. So I got maybe.
So you can see I've got this one. This is definitely on the center line. And then I've got this other one over here that is definitely lined up on the plaster line. So I did this right. Okay,
I know, it looks like it's like shooting.
let's try this again.
But it's about.
So you've already moved the ECS? Okay. Okay, so type point. And type, let's see, 0, comma, 1, 0, and apostrophe. Enter.
A doesn't always stay.
Oh, you scaled this already. Where did you get this file? Did you get it from the server, or did you get it from somewhere already on your computer?
I got it from the somewhere on my computer.
Okay, so you've already scaled this. Well, it is already scaled.
Someone got on your computer and scaled it for you.
Somebody slowly different.
You know what, we're trying to scale their files.
You'll get it off of Walrus, so you've got the right one.
Thing that happened a while ago, basically, you just left your AutoCAD file unattended and two people search.
Well, that's your own fault.
They're saying that, so they're doing the USB, that should be looking at OCD, never scale.
I wouldn't, just because I want to make sure I get, because the coordinate system should be the same regardless of scale. So if there's a problem with the coordinate system, I want to know that before I start goofing around with scale. Because if you scale it and your coordinate system is off, you know, things could end up in weird places.
How common is these in the professional industry? Like, do all sound designers know these kind of thing?
It's super common in the consulting world, in systems consulting world. In, you know, sort of like the independent, you know, freelance sound people in theater, not super common because it's so darn expensive. So most of them will try to use some sort of free tool, like from a manufacturer or something like that. Yeah, that worked. Yay! So I think ease is nice, as I said last week, because it works with multiple manufacturers. And if you can understand how ease works, you'll understand how the other ones work too. All right, so everybody got that far? We've got at least our UCS lined up in the right spot. So let's now do the same thing for our section. So you go over to the section view, and you're going to type UCS. Oops. UCS. And, oops. So you got to put this somewhere. In this case, we want to do the intersection of plaster line and the stage. You see where I'm putting it? Now, we can rotate this so that we have a Z if we really want to, but I think that's a little obnoxious because this is really just a 2D drawing. So we're going to have X stand in for Z. Okay? So when it says specify point on the x-axis, let's just have that be up. Okay? So find a spot on the x-axis, and then it says, where do you want Y? Well, Y should still be upstage. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so then same deal. Let's just plop a quick point here So I'm going to do 0, 10 feet. Oops. And, where is it? Over here. So let's make sure that that is definitely lined up with the floor. It looks like it is. And then I'll do the same thing. 10 feet, 0. And it goes up here. Let's make sure that's definitely lined up with the plaster line. Looks like it is. Okay, good. We're in good shape. Okay, we got that?
So you have to
You got it? You got it? You got it? Okay.
All right. So now we've got these all lined up. Now we can scale them, because here's the thing about ease. Ease is not going to accept values of like 1 foot 10 and 3/16 inches. All right. It's going to want a decimal value. Okay. So just because. Okay.
It's advanced for a program called ease.
Yeah. So, well, it's an acronym for something that is not what it suggests. Okay. So what we need to do is we can change our units. So if we go to units, just type units, you get this little thing here, and I'm doing this on the section right now. And right now my unit type is architectural. Just switch that to decimal for now, and click OK. So now if you look down here at the bottom, you'll see we've got decimal units. Wonderful. However, this thing was drawn as 1 unit equals an inch, which is a lot of numbers. And for the purposes of ease, it's going to be a lot easier if we scale this to feet. 1 unit equals a foot. Because then we don't have to type such enormous numbers with everything we do. So now let's type scale. Enter. It says, okay, select objects. Just type all, enter, and then enter again. And it says specify base point. What's our base point? Doesn't really matter, but just, yeah, 0, 0 would be just fine. Scale factor. Yeah, 1 divided by 12, because I want to take 12, I want for every 12 units that I have in the drawing right now, I want to cram those into 1 unit. So 1 divided by 12, because I got 12 inches in a foot. This thing is currently drawn in inches. So 1 divided by 12, enter, and the drawing should get a heck of a lot smaller. Okay, and your points that you made should get a heck of a lot larger. Okay, so now let's do the same thing with our ground plan. So go to the ground plan, you're going to type units, enter, switch over to decimal, okay, scale, all, base point 0, 0, scale factor 1 divided by 12. There we go. All right, we're in business. You with me? All right, my recommendation would be to go ahead and save these so that you don't lose all that work you just did. So here's the good news. Now, as I start plopping points throughout these two drawings, they should be synchronized. Their coordinate system should be the same, okay? Which is really going to help things a lot. So in ease, it is possible to actually draw the entire room in full 3D, okay? Walls and ceiling and everything. And if you want to actually if you want to plot reflections, acoustic reflections, you would have to do that in ease. You have to put all those walls in. Yes?
I accidentally hit a button, and now my cursor is a hand, and my escape doesn't stop being a hand. That just like moves.
Because you're panning.
I can fix that. I've never seen this.
If your hands turn into cursors.
That's why.
Yeah, when we look at your gestures, first of all, you have so many programs on it. You really hate your computer.
Okay.
That's going to cause you problems. You need to let that. Good action. Okay.
Nothing now. If they destroyed it, you need to like build it all the way. So I'm just made it like shattered into a million.
Okay. So in ease, you can draw the whole room. We're not going to do that because that's a lot of work. And honestly, for the kinds of stuff that we're doing with ease, the information you get by drawing all the walls is not actually helpful for us. Because primarily what we're interested in is loudspeaker coverage. Okay, we're interested in putting a virtual loudspeaker in this virtual room and seeing where the sound's going to go. And we mainly just kind of want to know direct sound. And I'm not so much interested in reflections usually. You know, I just try to go by the rule of thumb of try not to get the sound on the walls, if at all possible. Okay, so I'd rather do that than try to figure out what happens when they hit the wall. Okay, so all we're going to draw are the places where there would be ears. Okay, where would there be people sitting in a seat with ears? Okay, that would hear the sound from my loudspeakers. Okay, those are the places of the room that I want to draw. Okay, everywhere else, I'm not going to worry too much about it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we have to kind of look at this and figure out how to draw this, because in ease, you have to draw surfaces that you want to plot sound on. You have to draw them with only 4 points. And they have to be exactly 4 points, okay? You can't do it with 3 points, and you can't do it with 5 points. 4 points, okay? If you do it, and this has to do with the math, the triangulation math that ease has to do under the hood when it's trying to figure out how to plot that sound on it. If it's got a polygon there that has more than 4 points, it makes the math that ease has to do impossible, okay? So you have to draw it with 4 points. So we have to break up these audience. You can't just draw one shape that represents this curved audience area. That's not going to work, okay? You have to look at this and figure out how to simplify this audience area into surfaces that are made of only 4 points, okay? But you also don't want to draw just like every single seat as one little box. That would take you forever, okay? So let's take a look here. Let's see if we can figure something out. Well, this center section looks easy enough. So let me just drop a point here. If I put one right there at that corner, and another one back here at this corner, then I should be able to do the mirror image of those points, and I can draw that whole seating section with 4 points, couldn't I? And this is important because even though we know that there are steps involved here, I'm not going to draw those steps because you know what? The ears, if you connect the ears from the person in the front row to the ears of the person in the back row, that is a straight line. Right? So from the point of view of sound, the steps are not super important because the listening plane is flat. So if I drop those points there, let's go find their cousins over in the section. So if you click this point on the front row and just like snap your cursor to it, you'll see that I'm on 7.1989 on the X and minus 30.6354 on the Y. Yeah? Okay. So let's go over to the section. Here's the thing, all I really need out of the section is the Z-axis. Right? Because I have X and Y from the ground plan. So all I'm really looking for is Z. And in this case, Z is going to be this ground level. You see this floor piece right here for the front row?
Yep.
That's all I care about. I'm just trying to get the Z value for that. So I'm going to drop a point, and I can really put it anywhere on that Z. So I'm going to put it right here in this back corner. And if you hover over that point, you'll see it's not in exactly, you know, the Y value is minus 31.7396, which is not exactly what I had here. It's minus 30.6354, but that doesn't matter because all I really want is the Z. And the Z is minus 2.3333. Yeah?
Yes.
Great. So now I can start drawing this. Let's go over to the Ease room editor.
Mine is not loading. Mine is like 2.
It's supposed to be -2.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to switch it up.
Oh, I only did it on 1. Yeah, I got it.
You also scaled it.
I scaled it.
Okay.
Is it okay if mine's like you said negative 2.333, mine's negative 2.3312.
Yours should be exactly the same as mine because we are working with exactly the same drawing.
What I thought.
So
It's like really close, but it's
You must not have put your UCS in the correct place. So let's fix your UCS.
Sometimes I lose it in the point right next to it.
Yeah. So you want to find that intersection of the plaster line and the floor right there.
Okay.
And then Y. So let's go find a spot on Y. Look at that little corner piece there. Okay, good. And now. Ooh, wait, sorry, that was X. Okay, that's good. Okay, let's try again. There you go. So now the X spot here. So let's go find a spot that's definitely on there. Yep. There you go. Now we'll find a spot that's definitely on Y. Okay. Fresh gods. Okay, now go snap to that point.
And I scaled it to 1. And the same with this one. It's like it's really close, but it's not exactly what you said. I mean, my units are. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Precision matters.
that's a little bit. But you've got the same position as me. Did you download this file from the server today?
I did today, and I copied it onto
Okay.
my computer today.
Are you sure you scaled to 1/12?
Yes.
1 divided by 12?
1 divided by 12. Yes.
Where was your origin when you scaled?
It was right there.
It could be that you scaled when your origin was pointed in the wrong direction, maybe?
Maybe.
All right. Well, for now, use my coordinates.
Okay.
you may have to start over and redo your start over from the original drawings
Okay.
because you did something wrong.
Hmm.
Okay. So let's go over to, if you just hit Command Tab, you can tab through the different programs that are running on your computer. And this is why, Ryan, you're going to have a bad day, because you're going to pop this up and it's going to have
I just force quit 16 applications.
Okay.
It's okay.
So you're going to want to find the one that says Ease 4.4 Room Editor, and then release the command, and there you will be. So we need to drop some points in here. So the way that you draw in Ease is you insert the points, and then you play connect the dots. Okay, so let's drop the points in. So first thing you want to do is you see this little area at the top of this window. This tells you which types of objects you're allowed to see. And right now, vertices are set to off. So go ahead and click those. Make sure that that little button is depressed, because a vertice is what Ease calls a point. Okay? I don't know why, that's just what they said. Just make sure that's turned on. Okay? Otherwise you won't see what you're doing. So now we can draw one. This little toolbar that runs down the left side of the window, this is how you insert things into your drawing. So this one that says insert vertice or vertex, there's a little X. Click on that. Now that's active, and see how your cursor now switched to an X? You just click anywhere you want. Doesn't matter where you click, just click anywhere in that inside that drawing screen, and it plops up this little window. And in this window, you just type in the coordinates that you want to use. So let's go back and check CAD. Let's go back to our little ground plan view, and let's see what we said. Okay, so X is 7.1989. So 7.1989. Y is minus 30.6354. And Z, we'll have to go to the section to get Z. Z is minus 2.3333. Okay? So you should have those coordinates typed in.
Thank you. I see shit. You died for one.
Oh, so did you need
Yeah. Drink countries.
Everybody got this typed in? Okay. Am I allowed to move forward? Is everybody with me?
Yes.
Don't pretend that you're with me if you're not, because this is going to get a lot more complicated very, very soon. Okay. So now you're going to hit OK. You can hit apply if you want, and then hit OK. But and you're saying, I don't see anything. Why don't I see anything? Well, it's because the point you put in is essentially off the screen. So if you hit this little thing that looks like a yellow moon or something, it'll scale you to where your little points are. And what you'll notice is it made you a copy of that point over here. See that? There's one over here as well. And you can click them. So the first one is called P1. That's the one you made. And then there's another one over here called P1 asterisk. And the asterisk means it's a copy of it. Because ease defaults into what's called a mirrored mode. So it's going to assume that you're drawing a symmetrical room. And so you draw one point, and it's going to create a virtual copy of that point on opposite the center line.
So, say you're drawing a speaker,
Yeah,
but you don't want, but you're not using the same speakers on both sides.
we'll get to that. You're about 2 classes ahead of me. Yes.
So you say ease only handle 4 points. So why does it have an insert polygon button?
Because that's different.
Okay. Sorry.
Remember, I said to draw surfaces that you plot sound on, they have to be 4 points.
Okay.
You can draw other surfaces that you don't put sound on, but we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Okay? Because all we care about is where does the sound go.
The one I see on mine, Ian's computer, all points are switched. So the red dot is where P1 is.
Oh no, that's right. He's just like the other.
I just
view.
selected them differently.
Selecting this switch.
Right.
Ours are the same because he has little asterisks. You see those P1s.
Okay. So now let's go back to CAD and let's get the coordinates for our next point. So remember, our next point was all the way back here. Yeah? So this one is, X is 19.626. So I'm going to pull my little insert vertice thing again. I'm just going to click anywhere in here. And my X value was 19.626. If yours is different from that, then you did something different. And my y is minus 62.228.
What?
Minus 62.228. You should see that same coordinate in your CAD.
I'm getting some. I can get it, but I get some funky business happening. Let me see. Okay, never mind. I'm getting it.
Okay. And now we go over to the section view to get the z value for that. And remember, it's not super important to me that the other coordinates line up, but I do need the z. And the z is just going to be the floor level for this last row seat. So I'm going to plop a point right there at the base of where that seat goes. I'll snap to that, and I want the z value, which is the first number in my coordinate, which is 12.8333. Ease will do that for you. We are drawing the surface. We are not drawing the ears. So the surface is the floor. Ease knows that the ears are above the floor. So you want something that looks like this. Okay? What are you rotating?
I did.
The actual.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't click things I say not to click, because then your thing will look differently than my thing, and then things won't make sense.
Don't rotate your thing.
All right, if you click things you're not supposed to click, let's first of all just go ahead and insert this point. Okay? And then say, okay, where did it go? There it is. So you should see something like this. So we're looking at this from like the back row all the way house right. Okay, we're looking at this, in a perspective view. So you see these little arrows up here? These let you look at this from lots of different ways. So you can do side view. In other words, on the X, you can do end view on the Y, you can do plan view on the Z, or you can do 3D perspective view. Now watch what happens. If I click 3D perspective view, it toggles me around through different perspectives. Okay? See that? So now that you've hit your perspective view until you see something that looks like mine.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, once you've sort of verified that this is kind of working, then I tend to find that looking at it in plan view makes usually more sense to me. So if you go to plan view, then you should see something that looks like this. We're looking at it from the top. It is a good idea to check it from perspective view every once in a while just to make sure that your Z's are showing up in the right place. Because obviously you won't see that if you stay in plan view always. Okay, so now we've got our 4 points, don't we? Now before I do anything, I'm going to hit the little save button up here. Save project data. And look what happened. Now I've got this the main ease app flashing down here.
Where's the save project data again? I can see this.
So there's this little icon that looks like a little floppy disk here, or you can go to File, Save Project Data, or you can click F6, whatever you want to do. So remember, all I did was save the data here in this Room Edit app. That doesn't necessarily save it in my project. So that's why this other app is freaking out here, because it's saying, hey, I think you might have changed something. So you also have to save it here. So save project as well, and that writes it to the file. Okay, so you got to save it in both places. So now go back to the room edit view and let's turn this into a surface. Okay, so I'm going to go to this thing called insert face. A face is what I would call a surface. Okay, so you hit insert face, and then you're going to play connect the dots. Now here's very, 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 very important concept to understand. So make sure you're paying attention when these words come out of my mouth. It matters which order you click the dots. If you click them in the wrong order, the surface will be upside down. And you don't want that. Okay? So what you want is in ease keeps track of both sides of the surface. Because depending on which side of the surface you're looking at, that might be the surface that hears the sound, or it might be the side of the surface that doesn't hear the sound. For example, we are drawing the floor, right, of the theater. So one side of that surface is inside the room and can hear the sound. The other side of that surface is outside of the room and will not hear the sound. It'll be in the basement where the green room is. Okay? You want to make sure that the side of the surface that is allowed to hear sound is the side that is inside the room. Because ease will only consider the side that it defines one side as this is the side that hears sound, and this is the side that doesn't hear sound. And if you draw that upside down, then the side that hears the sound is not in the room. Okay? So here's how you make sure that it's in the room. If you connect the dots in a clockwise order, then the side that hears the sound will be up. In other words, looking at you. If you draw the points in a counterclockwise order, then the side that doesn't hear the sound will be up. Okay?
Doesn't matter which point you're starting at, as long as it's
Doesn't matter where you start, you just have to draw it clockwise if you want the side that hears sound to be looking at you, which in this case we do. Okay? So I'm going to start by just clicking this first point, and then I'm going to go in a clockwise fashion to the next point over here, and then I'm going to go to the next point over here, and I'm going to keep going in a clockwise order. And when you click that third point, it's going to say, hey, I think I know what you're doing. You're going to try to draw a surface with these 4 points. And it's going to basically, I don't know why it does this, because it's like, you have to click yes, or you could just click the point, right? But either way, it's a click, so it's not really saving you any time, but whatever. Just say, all right, yes, clever ease program. You could tell what I was doing, so I'll click anyway. All right?
Ease is trying to create a vertex along 2 points.
What's that?
My ease is trying to create a vertex along 2 points. Do I want it to create a vertex along 2 points?
You did something wrong, my friend.
But all I did was press the button 1 and then 2.
Yeah, create face. Yes. So because you did a minute. So because you started here, it couldn't infer the rest of the space because you weren't drawing across the center line. So I started here, went across the center line, and then went over here, and then went back, and I realized because of center line, it knew I was going to do that. But because you started here, your first 2 points were on the same side of center line. Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, so it pops up this screen that says, all right, tell me a little bit about this surface. And you can see that it'll tell you what points make up this surface, and it has this really cool spinny thing where you get to see it from all angles. That's fine. And you can define the materials, right? So what is this surface made out of? Not important for us because we're not drawing the room in full 3D. We're not doing all the walls, so the surfaces are not important to us because we're not going to be plotting reflections. And putting the surface material is critical if you want ease to be able to predict reflections, because as we know, sound reflects off different kinds of things different ways. Again, not super important for us. We don't need to worry about, for now, any of these things, but I just want to make you aware of it. You don't need to worry about textures either. So as long as it's visible, and that's checked, and you've got a green light here that says, yep, this data looks good, then you can click OK, and now you've got yourself a surface. Okay?
Yellow light mean?
Huh?
So what does the yellow light mean?
I don't know.
Green is good, and red is bad.
So if you look, you can click outside of it. It'll deselect it. You click it. Now, way you know you did it right is it should be yellow. If it's yellow, yellow is the side that gets sound. Okay?
So I accidentally clicked the place that says face, and now it has the word absorber in it. And now I try to get rid of absorber, it will not allow me to not have it be an absorber.
Doesn't really matter, but Absorber is basically the default. So I assume it will.
All right. So you got me so far? You with me?
Yes.
Okay, so now what I want you to do is figure out how to draw the other section of seating.
Same thing. Do we include the what's it? It's called vomitorium. What is the
So basically, you gotta, given that this is drawing in mirrored mode, if you just draw this section, then it should mirror over to this side too, right? So figure out how to draw this section, again, with only 4 points. And yeah, so do you care about this area? No, you don't, because there's no seats there, but if you wanted to draw that, then that would require a lot more points. You have to break this up into multiple surfaces, so it doesn't really matter. Just go ahead and pretend there's seats there. And you know in real life that there aren't.
So if you're drawing a section and then you're plotting it in ease and say one side, like the section itself is not symmetrical, but in ease it still mirrors it.
Yeah, so then you'd have to turn off that symmetry mode in ease before you drew that. But we're not there yet.
Because like this space isn't really symmetrical.
Yeah.
Because the top, they go like the far offstage side goes like the first 4 rows are angled and like the last 3 aren't. Like the offstage side of the side seating sections, they're not a straight line.
What are you talking about?
This is like a straight line. This goes like that and then straight.
Well, that's not, okay. That's not symmetry. Well, when we say the room is symmetrical, I mean that that this side of the room is identical to this side of the room. Okay, so this room is symmetrical. But yes, you have noticed that what you're basically saying is that this side of the seating section between front row to back row is not really a perfectly straight line. Okay, so if you draw that line, you'll notice that you're going to leave out a few seats here. So what do? You got a couple of options. You could just say, I don't care about those people. Or you could draw the surface so that it's a little bit wider. You could actually effectively add an extra seat over here in the back row that would then allow you to capture that whole all the way down. The other option is you could break this up into two things. So figure out where you're losing it. So you could say it looks like it's probably right here. So if I go from here to there, do I get everybody? Oh wait, somehow I've got. Okay. Maybe not. So maybe I would go to this one. There, that kind of works, right? And then from here to here, if I go from here to the back row, do I get everybody? Close. So maybe I would do this one after all. Sort of like that. And then go there. Yeah, that's pretty close. I would do that. So now what you end up doing is now you could draw that as 2 surfaces, right? So you end up doing basically this, right? So that's one, and then this is one, right? So that's one way to do it. Or you could, like, say, just ignore those couple of seats, or you could draw it a little bit bigger, or whatever. I mean, you do whatever you want to do, but this is probably the best way. The downside to this is now you have an extra surface that you have to keep track of, but that's not the end of the world. So do that. Draw this surface. I'll work on mine while you go. What you'll find is that because this surface does not straddle the center line, you're going to have to actually draw all the points. It won't reflect these ones for you. But what it will do is reflect everything you're doing here. It will reflect it on the other side of the room. So when you draw this seating section, it will create the other. Another little, just a quick little pro tip is when you Command Tab over, let's just go ahead and shrink your parallels window just ever so slightly. See what I'm doing? So that I can see my CAD coordinates underneath. That way I don't have to switch back and forth. No extra charge for that tip.
Wow.
Front row is the front row.
You want us to create the front-facing box as well? Oh no.
Hmm?
You want us to create the box as well?
What box?
The like face. When we connected all the dots.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so let's see.
Do we use the top and the bottom, is it the same?
Back row and front row in the same place.
And then
You got to find that middle row though. Right? Because you got to get this, if you're going to draw it like this, you got to get this, the height of this row. But you just got to count seats is all. Figure that out. We are cheating ever so slightly on this because this particular room, if you actually look at the angles of that seating area, the back half of it is angled ever so slightly differently than the front half. But it's not enough to vastly change the results of where the sound goes. So I just mention it in case you're paying attention and realize, wait a minute, that is not actually a straight line. Like you drew it wrong?
Yeah.
One second, I'll show you. Let me finish popping this one in. 12.83. Okay. So if you want to edit one, just click on it, and then right-click and say Properties,
Oh, there it is.
and then you can go in and put the coordinates and hit OK.
Awesome, thank you. Oh yeah, it is. Oh, you can see it in this one there. Or we would be in the same area. Whoa.
You should have something that looks like this.
You drew it in the wrong place. Mix up your X and Y.
So when you are doing the surface, you do this way, or
Yep.
you do the first faces and
Yep, exactly. Just make sure you go clockwise.
So just right click on that face that you selected. Just click in the middle of it. Right click. And you should be able to.
I entered 2 points and it ended up looking like that. I just entered those two.
Are you looking at plan view or? What are you looking at? You got something mixed up your coordinates.
Okay.
On that point, this point.
Oh.
You didn't read the coordinates correctly. So just hit that one. Right click on that.
Oh.
Sheet properties. Okay, so you gotta go check those coordinates here, because I guarantee that is not 137 feet.
Yeah, I
Stage
was,
level.
okay.
What's the face button?
Okay.
I think I know. So I think this one
Yeah.
is in the correct spot, but it's carrying this way.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
No, it doesn't. That's what I said. It's not going to mirror the points the way you want them to.
So you have to put each of the.
Because this surface you're drawing is not straddling center line. So what's going to happen is you're going to draw this whole surface, and it's going to then mirror that whole surface over here. So you have to draw all points for this. So don't worry about that. That one, yeah,
Oh, I see.
yeah.
So does it matter if I have the material automatically be absorbed?
That's fine. That's the default. The default's to that. So you gotta get at least this far, and then we're done. If you haven't gotten this far, you gotta get this far by Friday. Okay, because we're out of time now. So you gotta get to where you have now. You want to verify your work. So watch this. So when you think you've got it right, go on this, click this 3D perspective view, And just click that and spin this around and make sure this looks like what the building looks like. You see how I have the seats? I'm like, okay, yeah, that's how the seats look. They are, everything's in the right place, it looks right. Then you can go back to plan view. Okay? So once you got that, just make sure you're saving. Then you can close the room editor view, and then you can save project as well. And then you're done. So now, watch very, very carefully. Once you've saved everything, go to Help, Register. It says, would you like to be closed? You say yes, after you've saved everything. And then you say, Upload license. And it says, yes, I definitely want to upload it. You got to give the license back. Don't let it sit on your computer, because it's not safe there.
So download the license, keep forever.
Right. And then you can shut down your Windows virtual machine. And then when you come back later, you can download that license again.